shall we? Australia 38, South Africa 22. The Boks had 6 unanswered tries against them to crash down at Ellis Park to the first loss to the Wallabies in over 50 years. Arguably the worst half we've seen of Springbok rugby under Rassie Erasmus. It was absolutely shambolic. 22-0 up after 20 minutes. Losing the game 38 points to 22. 38 unanswered points by the Boks. It was absolutely woeful. Look at that point flow chart. Like, what just happened? We were 22 points up within 20 minutes and then spent an hour watching Australia score tries. And I think what we're going to have to do is a very serious dissection of what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to play like, and what we're going to do in the future. Because what we saw today was Tony Ball not working. Forcing the issue sometime, not keeping it simple enough, not doing the basics well enough, and we got outplayed. We got outplayed. There's no other way of putting it. I mean, it's absolutely tremendous from the Wallabies. What an effort for that. To be 22-0 down and to come back like that. But come on, you cannot be blowing a 22-point lead. Let alone when you have that kind of start. I mean, we couldn't put a foot wrong for the first 20 minutes. Everything we touched was turning to gold. Everything. And then everything just started falling apart. Fraser McWright with man of the match. We spoke about in the week the breakdown being so important for in this game, and the Wallabies absolutely dominated. We'll look at some of the stats, but Fraser McWright had an absolute field day. We had James Slipper making turnovers. The lineouts awful from the Boks throughout the game. In the second half, we got a little bit better at some of the steals, but in general, absolutely awful from the Boks, and that you can't have that. We cannot have lineouts like that. We can't play like that if we want to be the best team in the world. And yeah, there's going to be some big calls for next week. I'm very interested to see what the coaching staff are going to do, because they would have had a plan for next week. That plan would have banked on us probably winning this game, and then we would have given potentially a couple of other players a go. We now have to answer big questions of these players and the way we want to play and what the plan is. And the question, I think, is going to be, will we try and play the same way next week, or will we see us go more conservative? Will we see a Andre Pollard back, for example, and starting to play more sort of 10-man rugby and keep it a bit tight and try and outmuscle them? I think it's going to be interesting to see what the team selection is. But let's go through it, shall we, and try and work out what the hell happened. Kurt Lawrence scored in the second minute. Well, actually, officially the first minute. Phenomenal tries as well that we scored nice and quickly. And Sia Khaleesi having in front of the media, he looks absolutely devastated. And he should, with what he just saw unfold in front of him. But Kurt Lawrence goes over in the first minute. Liebach nails the conversion. A few minutes later, we get a penalty goal, 10 points to 0. Esterhuizen goes over for his first try. Khaleesi goes over. Liebach has the conversion, 22 points to 0 at 18 minutes. And at 18 minutes, we're thinking, well, how many are we going to score? The poll we actually ran was how many tries we're going to score in the second half. Over 50% of people said we're going to score 4+ tries in the second half. We didn't score a single point. I mean, just before halftime, and this for me was annoying. Well, 28 minutes, but this for me was annoying. That try before halftime. And that gave the Wallabies a bit of hope. And then all of a sudden, they started like a house on fire. Harry Wilson, 42 minutes. James O'Connor. Suali'i, 57 minutes. And also, the nature of the tries was so frustrating. Because the nature of the tries, so many of them were on counter-attack. Jorgensen, Wright, Wilson. Even Suali'i, to a certain degree, was off individual errors. Us on the attack, one pass too many. A knock-on. Forcing the issue. I mean, Suali'i was an intercept pass. If you look at Harry Wilson, Jorgensen, and Wright, all on counter-attack from Australia. Even Pisha, actually. I mean, it was a well-worked try. But Kurt Lawrence just completely got the numbers wrong. And Oxford Chair missed tackles and stuff. So individual errors, and all of a sudden we concede 6 tries. It's unacceptable, and that's going to have to change. We still led for 63% of the game. And if we go look at some of the stats here, that for me is the biggest stat. 1.4 points per meter entry. That is not good enough. Australia, 3.8 points. Almost like 3-4 times what we were scoring every time we got the 22. That kind of stat, not good enough. To have 13 entries and only 1.4 points scored. We had more 20-meter entries and fewer points. You know, we can't have that at the day. If we look at the ruck speed, for example, 75% in 0.3 seconds. So we've tried to play a really high tempo. And I mean, I've never seen, by the way, that's the most I've ever seen. Quick ball the entire time. And we look good for it. And then just mistakes. So you look at, for example, our attack profile. Lots of entries, not as many post-contact meters as the Wallabies. More line breaks, more carries, but not being clinical enough. And even the defensive profile, more dominant tackles, which is a stat we really pride ourselves on. As many tackles, slightly more tackles missed than the Wallabies, but didn't have to make as many tackles. But that for me is a big stat over there, the tackle offload allowed. The offloading in the tackles, and that's the continuity we saw the Wallabies use when they were scoring. You know, and turnovers won. Look at that stat as well. So if we look at some of those stats, 10 dominant tackles is a great stat. But 26 tackles missed. You cannot miss 26 tackles. 6 turnovers won from Australia. We've got to protect our breakdown better. And 23 times they were allowed the offload in the tackle. We went low, we allowed them to offload, and they hammered us for it. If you go look at some of the stats over here, it tells you a very clear picture of where it went wrong. And it's going to be a very long week where we try and dissect exactly what actually happened. But let's go try and sort of have a look, shall we? So 6 tries to 3. We came away with no points, by the way. There goes our rugby championship. You're going to have to go beat the All Blacks twice. But you play like that, you won't even get anywhere close to beating the All Blacks. 139 carries, 13 line breaks, 17 turnovers lost. The breakdown was an absolute shambles. Look at the territory. 43% of the game was played in Australia's 22. 43%. And we couldn't capitalize. That is the game right there. 64% territory. 52% possession. We dominate all the stats you'd want to dominate, but that for me over here, look at that. 69% line of win percentage. That is disgusting. You can never have anything lower than 80% at this level. Even at like schoolboy level, you've got to be sitting there at a lot better than 69%. That's awful. That's a horrendous stat. And that needs to get substantially better, or else we are going to be in a lot of trouble. Restarts received 7, even then 80% of our restarts percent win. We lost a couple of our restarts. Scrums were good, as they kind of always are. But on attack, 385 post-contact meters from the Wallabies, because our defense was absolutely shambolic. Turnovers were a joke. Penalties, not good enough. 10 penalties conceded. 10. We can't have that. We can't concede 10 penalties. More than double what they conceded. And we can't go after the ref because we weren't good. We weren't good. So lots of introspection, I think, to be honest, with the way we played, and lots to think about. I mean, a couple of players played well. I thought Siakalisi had a good game. I thought Eben Etzebeth tried hard. But I thought Kurt Lawrence had probably had his worst game in a Bok jersey. He was nowhere. He actually got subbed for Grant Williams stayed on the field. Marnie Liebach was phenomenal for 20 minutes and then kind of fell apart. Jesse Creel was similar, had a really good first half. Second half was like nowhere. Even Etzebeth, Andre Esterhuizen, was very good in a losing cause, but we just did not pitch up, and that's really frustrating and very uncharacteristic of the Bok team that we know. So what do you think? Let me know down in the comments.